everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have another great show for you today. Listen, I don't know how to say this in any other way, but to say it this way. There are many of you out there, that I know personally, and some of you I don't know very well, and you would consider yourself to be more of the quiet, shy type. And then there are people like me who have never seen a stage too small or too big and are in front of it. It's just who I am. I don't make apologies for it. It's just who I am. But it can be very difficult if you're one of those shy, quiet types for you to stand out, to be able to, you feel like it's hard and you can't get there because you can't do what I do, exactly, not at least comfortably, because it's just not who you are. So how do you get to that point to stand out? Because you do have value and you've got something to say. But sometimes people like me who talk a lot, we dominate and we don't give you an opportunity to say anything. Well, this book today, it's called Shy by Design by Michael Thompson. But let me tell you the subtitle that you need to listen to. 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. Yeah. By the way, and can I say to my fellow extroverts here for a second, we need this too. Not the book's for us too. It's not just for the shy types, it's for us too, because you know what? There is a lot that we can learn about empathy. There's a lot that we can learn about listening and shutting up every now and then. Because we don't do it very well. Let's be honest with each other. And the book is brilliantly written and it's excellent. And so whether you are the shy type or you are the talkative type like me, the book is perfect for you. I'll tell you, parents, I know I have a lot of parents listening to the show. If you have a shyer type of child, this book is going to be great. If they're in college, high school, or whatever, I think this book is perfect for you. And then I want to talk to the managers and to the folks out there who are training, even sales, especially salespeople. Listen, you probably have some salespeople out there who are a little bit more quiet. Do not underestimate how powerful they can be in your sales team. You need to read this book just in order to kind of understand them and help guide them, because this book is that valuable. All right. We're going to be talking to Michael in just a second. But before we do that, let's do every week, right? We're four-part people. We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. The fact of the matter is, if we're not working on these areas every day, we're not growing. And when we're not growing, we don't stay the same. We actually die. So what we have to do is we have to be working on ourselves on a regular basis. And so what I do is I ask you to check in with yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being in this area, 10 being it just doesn't get any better, 5 being average, and of how you're doing in each of these areas. So let's take the physical. If you were rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing when it comes to eating right, getting enough exercise, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being average, how would you say you are doing? Now, look, if you say you're a 2, there's no shame here in that. That's a starting point. We're going to treat it as a starting point and go, okay, well, how can I get better from here? All right. So, and by the way, we're not going from a 2 to a 10. Let's just get to a 2 to 2.5. Okay. And the simple little things you can do, maybe take a walk where you're not taking a walk. Maybe it's get your hand out of the bag of chips, put down the bottle of soda, right? Whatever it may be, right? It could be something so simple, right? To just change that. So that's your first number. Second number is your mental intellectual number. I can sit on Michael's book, Shy by Design, for 15 straight days. And do you know what? I'm not going to absorb a dang thing about it. We have to be an active participant in our intellectual and mental growth. And that means that we've got to grow on our wisdom and understanding of our world and ourselves. And we have to have a growth mindset and an open mindset. And We have to have a promotional mindset and an outward mindset so that we can grow in every area, because it's a mental challenge. And so one of the best ways to do that is read a book. And if you're going to listen to a book, which I don't have a problem with as a coach, but what I tell my clients is this: if you're going to listen to a book, when you stop the car, write down one or two things that you heard while listening that you could take action on, because that's where you're going to stimulate your mental and intellectual growth. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing there? Okay, good. That's your second number. Third number is the emotional number. And emotionally, we go about doing this like this. There's two parts. One is, how well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? Like when the person cuts you off in traffic, or the lady's taking too long in the grocery store, searching for the next coupon. How's your patience tank? Right. And then the second part of it is, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of another person? We typically call that empathy, but oftentimes what I find, especially a lot of times with my clients, is they don't have the emotional vocabulary to be able to understand the subtleties of the different emotions that they're going through. So we can do all sorts of things to improve our emotional vocabulary, but we can start with empathy. And starting with empathy means that we can start with active listening. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your number? And then finally, there's a spiritual. And the fact of the matter is, we're all spiritual beings that live in a human body. We connect spiritually with each other. We live by faith every day. You push the button on your car believing it was going to start. You drink your cup of coffee believing it wasn't poisonous. You saw the crosswalk sign said walk, and you walked believing the cars weren't going to hit you. You made plans for the future believing they're going to happen, and they haven't happened yet, but you trust that they will. That's all faith. It's a spiritual concept, not a human one. And then there's a thing called the human spirit. How do we overcome in the midst of chaos? Or how do we express joy in the midst of our circumstances that aren't going so well? Or how can we have peace when there's chaos that surrounds us at all times? Right? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it something else? And then the question is it working for you? And then what do you need to do to change it? And so those are your 4 areas. Those 4 areas are like the air in the tires of your car. Okay. So like if you have one tire that's too low, right? Well, it's hard to drive the car. And if you got all 4 tires too low, what happens? Well, you're going to ruin the car over the course of time. So speaking of someone who's got his tires all at the right height, his name is Michael Thompson. He's a career coach. He's a leadership lecturer for master students in Barcelona, Spain, and a strategic communicator advisor to top business leaders around the globe. His work has appeared in dozens of mainstream publications. You may have heard of them: Fast Company, Insider, Forbes, Inc., MSN, Apple News, and the blog of Stephen Pressfield. When he's not working with students and clients to grow their influence on their terms, he can be found exploring the Mediterranean with his wife and 2 young boys in his adopted home of Palomas, Spain. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, and welcome to A New Direction for the first time, Michael Thompson. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Jay. And I appreciate your introduction there. It's for extroverts also, just because we're like, as introverts, we rarely get to say to extroverts, like, you need to be more introverted. So it's kind of like, we get it a lot of, we need to do these extroverted things. And yeah, like, we usually don't snap back. Well, you need to listen and be more empathetic, or like spend more time alone is a big one.
Yeah, that would be a big one. But no, it's true. We what happens is we have a tendency to tell introverts you got to step up, but we don't tell extroverts to step down.
Yeah,
very frequently. And many introverts don't like hearing that because they like to hear themselves talk.
There's a thing that my dad used to say, that there's nothing more dangerous than an extrovert who doesn't know their values. Because they just kind of like, it's the most dangerous thing in the world. Like, it is kind of like, we see it with politics, with just about anything. But yeah, I don't get to say very often that you need to be more introverted, but
well, you get to say it today.
Times are changing, yeah. Today's my chance. I got it off my chest, and now I can go. Right? Like, now I can get off a podcast.
I love it. Good for you, man. Let's dig it. You got these 12 principles, and I loved every one of them. I really did. 1 through 12, all the principles were fantastic. I enjoyed absolutely all of them. So let's just start into these principles. But maybe before we start into the principles, maybe we ought to tell your story, because at least a little bit of it, because these principles actually come out of your story. And I don't think you're going to mind me saying this because you write it in the book, but you had a stutter, you had a speech impediment, and it was your, I guess you could say it was a sometimes you felt like it was your greatest weakness, but it was also your greatest strength. So why don't you tell the stories before we lead into this, because this is how the book comes to be.
So I grew up in a military household, and we moved all over the place. And I was kind of the opposite of everyone who I was around. So I was sensitive. All my Christmas photos, I'm behind my mom or dad's leg, peeking out. And I had a severe stutter. At age 5, it started like I could barely speak for a couple years. And I think the thing is, like, we're born kind of introverted or extroverted, and it's a spectrum. It's not one or the other. But with shyness, I think it's kind of a lived trait where it's kind of the stacking of the things that happen to you in your life. So I was kind of always, my self-talk was like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, just because I was surrounded by the opposite a lot of the time. And through college, yeah, still quiet, shy, stuttered, and I decided to take a sales job as my Mount Everest of like, I need to do something to get out into the world, to get some confidence, learn how to build relationships, and I knew it would hurt. And for 90 days, it did hurt. I think, like, I got hung up on a lot for stuttering, but I also hung up on people a lot because of me stuttering. So I'd get embarrassed, and I stutter still today, especially on M's. And then my name's Michael. I was selling mortgages, and it's like everyone else in the office had, like the goal is 100 calls a day. I had to make 110 just because of my hang up numbers. But something interesting happened around the 3-month mark, and I started, is like I turned a corner, and I started to make some sales. I saw in the office that it wasn't just the extroverted, charismatic types who were putting up good numbers. It was quiet, shy, reserved, a single mom, recent grad, whatever. There were a lot of ways to get from 0 to 1. And I started to see some strengths in myself that maybe I had buried due to thinking I'm weak and I had a stutter and I was shy. And these things of listening, taking notes, wanting the best for my clients. Within a year, I was managing a team. I became a corporate trainer a year after that. It was in the top 10 of the company, like my first calendar year. And it was just not by trying to be like the extroverted people in the room, but leaning into myself and figuring out what my strengths are. And the book is my principles, but the whole goal of the book is for you to think about your own principles. And it's the thing of figuring out our own way, because we all have gifts, and sometimes you have to do something stupid like take a sales job with a speech impediment to figure out what they are.
So I love the story, and I thought it was a great story, and I think it's so relatable because people can relate to it, and so many people can. They may not have exactly the issues that you've gone through, but the idea of, people saying, oh, you got to be an extrovert in sales is just so wrong. That's just not true. It simply is. And you demonstrate that clearly, of course. So these principles, I would like to go through as many as we can get through today. And I'd like to talk through them a little bit, because the first principle actually flows right out of your story. And that is embrace your imperfections. And you said, all those years of beating myself up, it turns out my unique selling point was being myself.
Yeah, it's the road home to ourselves. I think it's the journey of life. Like, and we're going to have some ups and downs. We lose ourselves along the way with life as it happens. But looking at yourself through a different lens is really important. Like, I went to a sales conference. I have a story in the book on this. It's like a Brian Tracy type speaker, like a big name. And I didn't want to be there. It was the last place I wanted to be. But as he was finishing up his talk, he said, "Oh, and like what one last tip: if you can't get people to talk to you, stutter. They'll see you as a human being instead of a salesperson." My mind exploded. My team exploded also. But hearing that, like, it was like, oh, it's interesting. Like, maybe it's like, if I stutter, it's kind of approachable. And a lot of my clients were like, you're not what I was expecting. And that's a very good thing. There's a lot of sales people who can kind of rely on charisma or being a fast talker while not doing a lot of the behind the scenes work that's often necessary. So I was the opposite of, like, if you have a bad experience with a fast talking sales person, you're kind of turned off from all salespeople. So I was the opposite of going in there quiet, stuttering, fumbling with my notebook, taking notes, confirming questions. And half the world thought it was, it was like I only had to get 5 clients a month, and there was enough of them who respected it, liked it, and referred me on to their friends who were like them. So it was really interesting of seeing something like the stutter it's like I still stutter and I'm still conscious of it at times, but my wife thought it was cute. Like, it's kind of a thing, if I give a talk and my book is about stuttering and being shy. So it is kind of like, hey, like, if I'm going to speak on something, it's going to be the book topic. People know in advance. And if I stutter, it's like they see me as a human being. So I'm not this person on stage. I'm one of them who kind of has a challenge. And like you said, maybe it isn't a stutter, but we all have challenges. So it's very interesting, the journey of life that you beat yourself up for 23 years and then you start to see, well, actually, this isn't that bad. Yeah.
Well, you make a quote here a little later in this chapter. It says, looking back, and I'm going to paraphrase it. So looking back, it wasn't my shyness that held me back from being successful, nor was it my stutter. The biggest problem was the internal dialogue going on in your head.
Yeah.
I think this is a really important feature that we make up stories in our head that can crush us.
Yeah.
And you had to turn that around.
The stories, as humans, we hold on to the negative. We remember pain, right? So if we have these, like, if you blow a presentation and like in 7th grade, the odds are high in 8th grade, you're not going to want to give a presentation. Again, we remember that, like, maybe you did great in 8th grade and 9th grade, but you still remember that time in 7th grade where it went wrong. Or if you get rejected by somebody who you're attracted to. But when you look back at we remember that one time, like, out of 10, and that sticks in the front of our brain, and you need to move that to the back of your brain. The best way that I've figured out how to do that is by making new memories and focusing on the good. So my mom always said that to me as a kid, like, focus on the good, focus on the good. And it's something that helped me to, to steer my self-talk, to kind of become friends with it. Like, not necessarily like best friends, but like to get to know it, to dissect it, and to see if it was true. A lot of the stories I told myself about being weak is like, that wasn't true at all.
Right.
It's like I was a kid who had a speech impediment. I was good at football. Like, I was really fast. I got up and did presentations, even though I stuttered and I felt like a complete idiot. I took a sales job, stuttering and shy. Like, all of these things are actually very courageous, but I kept seeing myself as the opposite.
His name is Michael Thompson. The book is entitled Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. We're just getting started, but we got a long way to go, so stay with us. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Linda Craft Team Realtors, longtime sponsor of A New Direction. They have helped people transition in life for nearly 40 years. Well, I know you're saying, what do you mean transition in life? They do real estate. Yeah, well, think about it. Every place you ever lived has been a life transition. They know how to take the stress out of it. And they've been doing that successfully for thousands of people for 40 years. So listen, when you're ready to sell your home and buy your home and you want to take the stress out of your next life transition, buying or selling your house, start with Linda Craft Team Realtors. It's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Michael Thompson, the book Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. We just looked at principle number 1. We're about to bounce into principle number 2. Lead with listening. Michael, we say this all the time. I mean, I don't care what it is. Leadership books, everybody says lead with listening. Listening is a leader thing. Listen, 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 listen. Why is it so dang hard for us to do it?
That's a great question. There's a lot of things that go into it. Smartphones don't help, but prior to smartphones, we still had these quotes about listening. We're worried about ourselves. We're worried. We're trying to project ourselves on a certain image. So if we're having a conversation, we're usually chomping at the bit of what clever thing we can say next. Yeah, and all of these things kind of like our past experiences of wanting to be seen. It's very interesting. Like if you want to be heard and seen, like listen and see other people. But we kind of have this idea that we have to be clever and we have to be ahead. And all it really does is impede us from listening to the person in front of us.
Yeah.
But it's basically like I strongly believe that the most valuable people in the world are the people who first take the time to understand what other people value. And that starts with asking questions. It starts with silencing your ego, your agenda, and leaning in to understand the person, not just listen. It's curiosity. It's a mix of empathy and curiosity, I think, is listening, is like wanting to listen is the first step.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's not something that we remind ourselves, like, I should listen now, but maybe we should.
You know, you have a little technique here, though, that I thought was brilliant. Simple, but brilliant. And there's always, brilliance comes in, the elegance comes in simplicity of it. You carry a notebook with you so that you can write down details about each person that you speak with.
Yeah, I did your test when you were like, what number are you from 1 to 10? I was writing notes on it, like emotional vocabulary I wrote down just as sparks. But yeah, like I had a speech therapist. I was in speech therapy like every Tuesday, Thursday from like age 5 to like 17. And one of my therapists, like the first day, she spoke to me for about a half an hour or so. And she was like, your problem isn't speaking, it's listening. Like you get so hung up on what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And if you're going to stutter, if you're going to feel embarrassed, that you don't listen to anybody. And I kind of was taken back. Like, well, I thought since I can't speak too good, I'm a good listener. But she was absolutely right. Like I spent so much time in my head planning what I was going to say, worrying about if I was going to get called on in class, if I had to speak up in an office. And what she did was really smart is we didn't talk for a couple classes. We watched videos and I had to take notes on body language, what was being said, what wasn't being said. And we talked about the videos after they were done. So each class, like I had to write down notes, and she encouraged me to carry a notebook everywhere and to write down 3 things after every interaction. Like, and that habit just kind of like it worked. So I stuck with it.
You have some fun things that happen in this chapter. These conversation personas that you design.
Yeah.
Be a feather, be a set designer, be a biographer, be a trampoline, be a smart parrot. Above all, be the opposite of a cricket. Of those, they're brilliant. Of those, which one's your favorite, you think?
I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this chapter just because it was the fact of like how, like I have in the chapter is like being told that you have to be a better listener is like being told you have to eat more broccoli. Like it's not something that you really want to hear. Like it's me as an introvert saying to you, you need to be a better listener. Like it's not like it doesn't like it's not a comfortable conversation to yourself
Right.
or other people.
Right.
So it's like how like so everywhere we turn is like be an active listener. But if I ask my MBA students what that means, like I'll get 100 different answers.
Right.
That kind of beat around the same thing. But how do you make it fun? Like I don't walk into a conversation saying be an active listener. Like it's just not, we don't say that to ourselves.
Right.
So what fun ways could we say to ourselves that serve as reminders to be to prioritize listening. And my favorite one, probably the one that can kind of cover a lot of them, is the biographer. Just because it
Oh,
goes into a lot of the questioning, like the feather, I think is really important. So the idea of the feather is to drop your baggage
right.
before you enter a conversation, and goes back. We carry past experiences in the conversations, how we were treated in the past, plus our future worries. And it's not downplaying those like experiences or feelings or emotions. It's just putting them aside for 15 minutes. Like, and I have a very cheesy line in the book of acting like a feather allows you to be blown away by the people you meet. Like, and I threw it in the book, and my friends and editors, I was like, I have this here as a marker, like, and they're like, I love it. You got to keep that.
Yeah, you did.
But silencing yourself, like, focus, that allows you to focus on the other person, combined with the biographer tip of pretend that your job is to be a biographer, obviously. Like, it's kind of self-explanatory. About each person you come into contact with, and the reminder, like, you don't have to get their story all in one hit. You can collect it piece at a time. If somebody writes a biography on Steve Jobs, it takes them a decade. So
Right.
it's just kind of the thing of asking questions, keeping it on them. But it's kind of a fun way. Yeah, like,
I
I'm
love
glad you liked the personas, just
I
because it's like I was proud of that one.
yeah, I did. I loved it. And I think the biographer is a great way to start, right? Because here's what happens so frequently, at least as I see it. And it's that we start as a biographer, and then we get to a point with our friends, we don't become a biographer anymore. And there's still so much I need to learn about my own friends.
Hmm.
Do you know? And that was the thing that spoke to me was, have I, if I think about my friends, have I really done the biography work that I need to do if I wanted to write a book on them? Answer is no.
Yeah, we probably, well, like with my wife, we have 2 young kids. Like, am I curious every day and how she's feeling, what she's doing, like, no, I take it for granted.
Right.
And probably the reason I wrote the book is as reminders, just as much for me as it is for the reader. But we do get lazy with it, and it's something, during COVID, Gretchen Rubin's mom had this really great idea of a boring email list, like a boring email chain, where each week you share something boring. Like, I had a great salad that had raisins in it yesterday. I beat my kid at Uno. Yeah, and what those kind of things do is they get the conversation. Like if me and you talk today and we don't speak for 6 more months, and then like a year after that, it's kind of hard to get the conversation going. Maybe not with you specifically, but with friends, it, like, if we, like with kids, life gets busy. Like, we don't see our friends as much as we'd like to. What that exercise does is it keeps it kind of human, your daily experiences. So when you do link up, the goal of the chain, like, you don't have to reply, like, to respond. You just have to read the thing. So when you do speak with someone, you can ask about that game of Uno. What was in your walnut salad that made it so great? And that primes it, like, where, like, all that small talk does, like, and with friends, you need some small talk also at times.
Yeah.
Helps you to prime it to get into the things that really are going on. But with friends too, it's just a question of, like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
We're told not to ask that. Like, it's a boring question, but it's the most important question in the world. If somebody shares their truth, that's the greatest question in the world. So with friends, like, how are you really doing? Letting them reveal themselves, like, in that moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it really leads us into principle number 3, which is treat your curiosity. Oh, come on, Jay. Treat your curiosity as your primary responsibility. Because you start off, be curious, not judgmental. And I think if we're going to actively listen, if we're going to try to actively listen, then curiosity must be our primary responsibility. We must be curious and not be judgmental. So let's talk about, there's something you say in here, the strength of vulnerability. But let's talk about treat your curiosity as a primary responsibility and what your thoughts are there.
So that's kind of the baseline for everything in the book. I think that's kind of the umbrella chapter, like, or idea that runs through the book is curiosity first for your own self, like for yourself. For me, it was the self-talk inspection, like getting curious of why certain stories stuck in my head, why I thought certain things, why I didn't question societal norms. And then it's the curiosity in the other person. So I think the more you're curious in yourself and you get comfortable with yourself, the more naturally you're curious in other people. Yeah, like, and it's a two-way street where that curiosity, that the attraction of someone who's curious, like if you want to attract people into your life, get curious about them. And like asking questions, start with basic questions, just get the conversations going. Like, and then, but the more, like, I define the art of conversation in the book as creating the space for people to reveal themselves. So if you're curious in them, like, and you give them room for them to express themselves, not jumping in. If there's a silence, like sometimes let that silence, don't jump it, like it's not Jeopardy,
Right.
let it go and let them continue talking, flushing out their thoughts, sharing a new experience. So I think that thing of curiosity plus space for people to express who they are, that's where the magic happens with relationships.
Why do you think vulnerability, the strength, why do you feel that vulnerability is such a strength when you think about this chapter?
So we're told to keep the focus on other people, and that's mostly right. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to tell my life story to someone just right off the bat.
Sure.
And a lot of people, like, if I'm asked what's your story, it's kind of a big question sometimes too. So what, like with teaching students, I teach students from my last class at the MBA program had, I think, 37 students that class, and from Syria, like from Canada, Romania. So they're coming from some places where they're like not the safest places in the world. They've had to fight to get to Barcelona. Like a lot of them are insecure because of the language, maybe, whatever it is. And me going in there and acting confident, again, saying I have all the answers, like, isn't going to get them more comfortable in the class. So I'm very self-deprecating, like, and I'll share the stories of me stuttering, and especially on IMS, and my name's Michael and I'm teaching at an MBA program and I sold mortgages. Like, and I took all the confidence and money I earned in sales. I went to Central America and lost $250,000 in a real estate investment. Came back to the United States. I sat in a bar for 2 years, moved to Spain, had to knock on doors again. Like, so by me sharing my struggles, that opens the door for them to share theirs as well. So I generally think, like, I usually start with me, and that gets people to speak about them.
Yeah, that's such a great principle. Principle 4, and I'd love to have you expand this out a little bit more as we talk through it. Grow your confidence in private.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do today. Like back when I was 21, that was 25 years ago. There wasn't YouTube.
Okay. I know hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's going to be a lot of people who are not looking at you because they're listening to this on podcast, and some of you on DBTV are going to watch him. He does not look his age, folks. He looks like he's 23. Yeah. 23. He looks like he's barely can maybe buy a drink in a bar is what he looks like. Okay. So the fact that he says that 25 years.
I'm 46. Yeah. But
yeah, you want to call him out on it.
Today I shaved for the first time in ages. And my shaver, I have like for a hair shaver for the beard. And I was like, today in a course, half an hour before we got on a call, the battery died. Like, I hadn't charged it in ages, so I had half a shaved head. But I got good lighting. I shaved today and good jeans, I suppose. But yeah, 25 years ago though, I didn't have, like, I couldn't go to YouTube and like
Right.
It's like Dale Carnegie wasn't on my syllabus in university. Like it just didn't seem like we had these kind of these things available. And for me, I took a sales job. That was the opposite of what I would do for a coaching client, is that massive jump right off of the bat. Yeah, like I'd encourage them to kind of, start smart by starting small. Like you said earlier, the 2 to 2.5.
Yeah.
And we can do a lot of things at home with public speaking. Like we got like our smartphones are great inventions for recording ourselves. Giving a 2 minutes a day is a great way to improve your communication skills. We can write, we can blog. So it's just kind of, we don't have to put ourselves out into the world immediately, but we have to commit to doing things behind the scenes that prepare. So when the conversations do turn in our direction, or we do have to speak up at a meeting, we're prepared for it.
Yeah. I want to, this is going to be, I don't know if it's random or not, but it's something that you wrote here that it fits into this chapter, and you talk about it under the heading of rather than wing it, write it down. And you say there's 5 questions that you like to answer each day in a few sentence or 2. And I'd like to just have people hear these questions simply because I think they're really powerful. And folks, if you'll write these questions or come back and listen to it, the podcast of this section again, and let's do, but these 5 questions I think are so imperative and so important for you to answer each day. And here they are. What's one thing I learned today? What's one memory I thought about today? What's one thing I'm proud of? What's one thing I could have done better? And what's one way someone helped me? Folks, if you can answer those 5 questions every day, can I just tell you, if you end your day with those things or find yourself in the middle of the day, I'm telling you, I really firmly believe that those 5 questions will change your life. I absolutely am convinced of it. I just think they're very powerful. And I'm so glad that Michael shared those, because they're really, 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 really good. Something that you said in this chapter here before we move on and we take a break, you talk about in the section it's called Observe Before You Speak. You say, whenever possible, do not wait to be called on, and suck it up and go first. This will free your mind up so you can listen to other people. So I think you're talking specifically, if you were in a communications class, or I think it was, and you got some direction to go, don't wait to the end. Go up so you can really observe. But I think for the shy person, they do wait, hoping, like you talked about earlier in the book, hoping that maybe time will run out and they just won't get to you.
Yeah, that's my plan. That was my strategy all through college. Yeah.
But the reality is, if you suck it up and go first, you're actually freeing your mind to observe and listen and be curious about what other people do, because you can't do that if you're only thinking about, oh my God, do I got to go next? Do I got to go next? Do I got to go next?
Yeah. So it's a little contradictory of what I said earlier about like going slow with stuff. So like it's very circumstantial. Like in my political science teacher, Dr. Kitchen, he pulled me aside and said that like he could tell that like I was just red and shaky and palmy if we had presentation days. And he was like, dude, just go first. Pick your shots, right? Like what's one area in your life where you can go first? So it's not everything where you have to jump off a cliff. It's more like what's a challenge, what's an area. Speaking up in meetings first, giving a presentation, saying hi to people on the street isn't easy. Just go first on the street. Start a conversation with your cashier, your local supermarket. Start small. But by me doing that, it clears so much out of my head of what I'm going to say. Yeah. Like where I can actually sit back and absorb what other people are saying.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people on the show, military people, who have said, sometimes you just have to practice deliberate discomfort. Yeah. But it's that deliberate discomfort that you're talking about up front that actually makes your mind freer to be more comfortable.
Yeah, it's Father Richard Rohr has a great quote that I'm going to absolutely butcher that goes something along the lines like, I pray each day for one daily humiliation, then I must reserve time to think about the humiliation. Completely butchered.
No,
It's something of getting uncomfortable, but don't get uncomfortable just to get uncomfortable. Like reflect on the uncomfort also. What did you like, and not just reflect of what you did wrong. One of my questions is like, what's something that you're proud of today? That question alone of like looking for the good you're doing can be revolutionary in your like in the way that you see yourself and your confidence. Just because when we get something wrong, we like 9 out of the 10 things we may have gotten right. Just that 10th thing was wrong.
Yeah.
But we should take pride in the fact that we got my manager in the sales job. I went up to him after like screwing up calls and stuff. And he's like, "What, did you get anything right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, go do more of those." Kind of, so we kind of like the whole thing of like failure. It's like, we don't really ever fail. It's more, we just screw like one part came off. But there's a lot we do well that we don't really give ourselves credit for.
His name is Michael Thompson. The book is entitled Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. He's absolutely awesome. The book is absolutely awesome. We're going to be back just shortly. We got to take another sponsor break for just about 30 seconds to a minute. So stay with me right here. You're listening to him and me here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, lindacraft.com is the website that I recommend if you are interested in selling or buying real estate. Doesn't matter which one. It's lindacraft.com. I believe it's the most comprehensive website out there. It has everything that you can possibly think of. How to Move with Kids, written by a child psychologist. Moving with Pets, written by a veterinarian. Homes, of course, for sale. What's available. Events coming up. Vendors that they've used over the course of their 40-year period being around that they recommend. That have been consistent. Folks, I'm just telling you, lindacraft.com is the most comprehensive real estate website that you can get on. Check it out for me, please, will you? And then when you do, why not write them a little note saying, hey, you heard them on A New Direction. It's lindacraft.com, lindacraft.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Michael Thompson. Well, I call him friend. He doesn't know we're friends yet, but we're friends. He's going to have to, we'll talk about it after the show. Shy by Design is the book, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out. We're headed into section 2, part 2, I should say, meaningful connections. Chapter 5 is Get to Know Your Heroes, which I think is a really interesting set of stories that you talked about, of getting to know some people that you really looked up to, and that even someone who's shy can do it.
It's easier to pick the people who you're attracted to instead of just like, for me, I always think like, I used to think that I had to meet new people. That sounded scary, but meeting one new person doesn't sound nearly as scary. And as kind of shy introvert, like, we know who we're attracted to, and we do read their articles. We listen to their podcast. So it's kind of, we're kind of hunting already. And the outreach message, if you know something about someone and it's proven you've put in the work to get to know them, you're curious in them, it's not nearly as scary as it as it can sometimes feel if you haven't done the work.
Principle 6, friendships are forged in the follow-up. I loved this chapter because you make, there's a statement here you make, friendships are a choice, first of all, right? I know we don't think of it. It's true, but we just don't think about it that way. But the idea that friendships are forged in the follow-up.
Yeah, it's the keeping up with people, and it's like friendship, like in today's world, it's the like lack of connection is the big, like, lack of meaning, connection, is the world's challenge, it feels like. And the friendships is a choice. It's like, what like we prioritize family and friends, we say, but do we?
Mm,
So it's making sacrifices of your career, and you're like making the effort on a Friday, a Thursday afternoon, instead of watching TV, like leave 5 voice messages for some friends you haven't spoken to in a while. So just making that commitment to, like, if friends and family are the most important thing in your life, you can set up ways that like when you meet with friends, like it doesn't always have to be for an hour and a half.
right,
Like it can be an email just
right,
saying like, hey, I thought of you, just listen to a stupid song that we got drunk to in college.
right, right.
um like, and that kind of stuff, like that's what keeps friendships going. And there's an interesting study showed by the New York Times about the friendships that last keep in contact every 15 days.
Mm,
But it doesn't have to be for lunch, it doesn't have to be for a dinner, it can be like just those short touch points.
right.
um those, like, I'm 46, like I've seen my high school, college, job friends from the United States, from Central America. You got to make the effort.
Right.
There's no way around it. And
Right.
sometimes with friends, you got to make the 9 steps if you want to meet it, like all 10 steps to meet them halfway. Like if they're busy with kids, I have a friend in Tennessee who's great with, like he had kids earlier than me. Um, so he checks in on me. He's like, you don't, like, he always says, don't feel like you need to reply. Like, I know it's busy right now.
Mm,
But just those voice messages, like the fast email, the picture of his girl playing football, soccer, that's what keeps us going. So when we do talk, we're right back into things.
yeah, I think one of the things that hits me is because you and I both coach people and business people, and one of the things that we know, and you've been in sales, so we both know the power of follow up,
Yeah.
and yet it is one of the weakest things that salespeople do, and I think humans do, is follow back up.
Yeah.
And yet it's the most powerful thing we can do. We just don't do it well, right? And I was thinking about this as I was reading this chapter, and I was saying to myself, how horrible are we in follow up?
It's that what the world's moving really fast. Like, and it is kind of the thing, like everything important, the questions I ask myself, those 5 questions, it's to get me to slow down.
Right,
Following up is the same thing. Like following up is your job.
right,
Like with sales, with friendships, with just about anything, it's keeping it going.
right.
um and you can create systems where, like, that even sounds horrible, like anti-human, like create a system to keep in contact with friends. Like with sales, I know it sounds of it like normal, but with friends but the reality is setting a reminder to contact Bart in 2 weeks to see
Right,
how his mom's doing.
right,
Like you not have a spreadsheet, but have reminders of like what's happening in the lives of the people you care about. A lot of us have a to-do list. We rarely keep like what other people are doing list.
right.
And if you kind of write that stuff down of how's somebody's little league game going, just those little things, like that's what relationships are, is a culmination of these encounters.
Right. I'm going to jump ahead here to principle 8, and that is gain new eyes through the power of weak ties. I do not think people understand the power that there is in our weak ties. And I know we've got to explain it because people are going, weak ties. What do you mean, weak ties? Do we have strong ties? Yes, we have strong ties and we have weak ties. Matter of fact, we just talked about some strong ties. Let's talk about gaining new eyes through the power of weak ties and what that is.
So with weak ties, like the name is misleading just because, especially in our careers, they're kind of the strongest connections we have in terms of new opportunities,
Mhm.
new ideas. So weak ties, like we have a primary circle of say 25 people, like who are like the those are our strong ties, are our close ties. Then we have different groups of maybe another 50 and then maybe another 75. So we generally have maximum about 150 people in our orbit at any given time.
Mhm.
And for my career, my close ties, we're generally talking like we run in the same circles, we read the same stuff, we watch the same movies, we shop at the same places. We're like it's an algorithm of sameness within our friendship group. So in terms of them hearing new opportunities, like it's kind of rare. Like, and sometimes too, if you refer a close friend, like it's interesting that we refer people some like more outside of our like immediate network. Like, and that speaks to the power of weak ties, where it's the people that we've done a project with for a couple hours, or we were introduced to from a friend, connection on LinkedIn who appreciates my writing style or something. Most of my career opportunities are from those people, not my primary network. And what these like, I get on a call every week with somebody who I'm curious about in any part of the world. Years of doing that, we do send each other opportunities, but the real benefit of it is like I get to see what they're seeing. They get to share books that they're reading in, say, Colombia. What's like cool new ideas. So it's a thing of having these people in your orbit. Like, and again, like you probably want to see your close friends every 2 weeks to month, your second layer friends once a quarter, like your weak ties is maybe every 6 months. And but you can check in fast voice notes again, LinkedIn calls, whatever it is, to see what they're seeing. My career as a writer is from having interesting conversations with people who don't look or act like me. Like, is essentially what my book is too. Like all of my blog posts, like I'm outside of my dad and my wife, like stories in the book. Yeah, it's the curiosity of meeting these new people, seeing what they're seeing. If you throw an idea at them or a problem, they're going to go at it differently than how you learned how to do it in your college class.
So we've almost done an hour here.
Oh, wow. All right.
I know it goes really, really fast.
You need to say like blueberry pancakes, and I would have shut up 3 minutes ago on that answer.
No, we're good, man. We're good. When I have this thing, man, when you're good, I'm just going to let you roll. I mean, because you were throwing out gems out there. So
all right. Yeah, I felt like I was repetitive. Yeah, that like I think it's because you brought it up that we would talk about it. Maybe it got in my head.
Because I told you we were going to talk about it. Is why.
I screwed it up more than the other ones.
No, you were great. You were great. It was great. So, if you could wrap a summary around this in a minute, how would you summarize Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out?
Is that a question that we're recording right now?
Yeah.
Like, is this being recorded right now?
We're still live and on the air. Yeah.
How I would define it is there's a lot of books on good to great.
Right.
This is a book to go from bad to not awful. And being not awful at something can give you the confidence, momentum. For me, it's a book to take your first steps, to put yourself out into the world, to get curious in people. Everything good in life is a collaboration. And also to bet on yourself. We didn't get a chance to talk on the sections of being bold and these kind of things. Right. But if it's
back.
Excuse me?
Maybe we'll have to bring you back.
Oh, cool. I'm free tomorrow. So since we're friends now, right?
Awesome.
No, it's always the part, like the boldness part of the equation, though, is it's a culmination. It's kind of a roadmap of getting curious in yourself in the beginning, connections with people. If you're curious, plus you have a group of people around you who are supportive, the courage feels a lot less scary.
Right. That's good. Stay with me, will you, Michael? Thank you so much. Hey, folks, just to show you what I say to you every week, right? You're in control of 3 things in your life: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Life does not give you what you always want. So you know what? You can take control of your attitude. It's not easy, but you can control it. I promise. Your effort is tied to your excellence. So how excellent will you choose to be today? That's your choice and your control of it. And finally, we all get punched in the gut or knocked down in the teeth. It's up to you to get back up again. Get back up. You have the choice to do that. And let me just tell you this. We need you. You're worth it. So get back up. when you get knocked down. We're right here. You know what? We'll be back next week with another great guest, another great book. And as I tell you all over the place, you had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, a 5-star positive review wherever you listen to the show. Say something to the folks at DBTV or the radio station you're listening to us across the country, around the world. I appreciate you all so much. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.